Hello, Rick Gideon here, Columbian Ecclesia of God. Uh, I want to talk about salvation coming to humanity. God is going to save his creation, save humanity. Paul witnessed several times that he's going to save all mankind. So that's what I teach in accordance to the Jesus that Moses preached, that in seven major phases, seven annual Sabbaths, he's going to bring rest to humanity. And in three major phases, that are the seven annual Sabbaths, are grouped in. I don't keep them in the letter of the law, by the way, anymore. That is the Jesus that Moses preached, and that is the Jesus that must be restored in America among the 144,000. I don't want to get too far off on that. So let's talk about sociopaths. Sociopaths don't have a conscience, and they don't have empathy for other people. They are considered basically incorrigible, or they are unable to be rehabilitated. Often they find themselves in two places. In the seat of government. Yeah, many of your leaders around the world are sociopathic. They crave and desire power over others. And they end up as criminals, and they end up in your prisons. So, I want to talk about Nebuchadnezzar. Have you ever studied this guy's personality? This guy was a classic sociopath. He didn't have empathy for other people. He didn't have a conscience. And one other thing, they don't seem to learn. I didn't mention, they don't seem to learn from their mistakes. By the way, I've been looking at some of my old videos from the past year and putting them on Facebook. I didn't realize how much I yelled. I probably came across as an angry guy, and a lot of times I was. So I've been laying low for a couple of weeks, praying a lot, just resolving some things, and now I'm back here. So I had a few videos I wanted to do, but I wanted to start with this one. Let's see how God deals with this guy and rehabilitates him. And this guy ends up being basically converted, or it seems to be. But it took like three times, like three incidents in this guy's life involving Daniel and his three friends, and of course the Most High God, Yahweh God, to get the message. And he got it, finally. But God had to do something to him, and it kind of maybe ties in with Revelation 21:8. What is the lake of fire? What did God have to do to this guy to turn him around and get him to see the light? Ultimately, God is responsible for humanity and the state that humanity is in. Many were made sinners. Many will be made righteous. Mankind were made sinners. So mankind will be made righteous. So, Daniel chapter 2. Now, I may read a lot. I may just sit here and expound. So Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar has the dream concerning the awesome statue and what's going to happen in the future. So I'm just going to paraphrase or do a summation here. He has this dream, he's disturbed. He calls all the wise men of Babylon, the soothsayers, the magicians, the astrologers in. Not only do they have to interpret interpret the dream, but they have to tell him what the dream was. And what does he tell them if they can't tell him his dream and then interpret it? Well, I'm going to cut you up. You'll get cut up, cut you in pieces, and your houses will be ash heaps. What a nice guy. No regard for human life. And he puts on them something that is basically impossible. They're saying, well, you know what you're asking us to do, only the gods know that don't dwell with flesh. And they were right. Well, only God knows, which Daniel freely admitted and rightly admitted that dreams and interpretations of dreams come from God, as Joseph did. And you notice Pharaoh, when Joseph interpreted his dream, was much different to Joseph, to his family, to his brothers, and to Jacob's house. Had him come down, gave him the best of the land, treated him kindly, treated Jacob the elder kindly. This guy, well, as we'll see, so he calls Daniel, Daniel is asks for time. God reveals the dream and reveals the interpretation. He's hurried in before the king. He tells him the dream and he interprets it. And we get this from Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold?" No, I'm sorry. I am off. I am off. Daniel chapter 2, verse 16. 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face after Daniel reveals the dream and interprets it. Fell on his face prostrate before Daniel and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. The king answered Daniel and said, "Truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets. Since you could reveal this secret." The king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and the chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Great. This guy has something done to him. Not only is his dream interpreted, he gets told what the dream is. You'd think this guy would be converted. Okay, this guy, his God is the God of gods. He confesses. Okay, you'd think that this guy would begin to seek out this God or whatever, or he would be like moved to change by this awesome thing that Daniel, through God, did. Well, does he? Let's just go on to the next chapter. Chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold. Now many people who comment, and historians, and I don't know many, but there have been people that have researched this and said it was a gold image of himself, and there's people that tie this in with the image of the beast. I haven't really researched it, but look, soon after this guy has his dream interpreted and revealed. You'd think this guy would change, become humble, and acknowledge this God. No, this guy's creating a gold image. For what? Well, let's read on. Whose height was 60 cubits and its width was 66 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar set up. So, going on here, I'm trying to make this a little shorter. It says, then a herald, verse 4, cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyres, and psaltery, in symphony with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up." Did this man learn anything from the awesome dream, the awesome thing that was done before him? His dream told and interpreted, and he confesses that Daniel's God is God, basically, the God of gods. Did he learn anything from that? No, he didn't learn a thing. He's as sociopathic, high-minded as ever, as we'll see. So it goes on in verse 6, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. This before the God who acknowledged was the God of gods. Nice guy, huh? Yeah, he changed, didn't he? No, he didn't change at all. He's showing here he has no regard for human life. And he makes an image of gold, and there have been commentaries, people that have researched this, that it was an image of himself. The gold image, the dream that he had with the head of gold, which was him. You are that head of gold. And he realized that his kingdom would exchange hands. So he was trying to solidify himself. I haven't done a whole lot of research on that. But do you see, he didn't change. Didn't change at all. So he finds out, some of the leaders come forward, the satraps and administrators, and says, some of the Jews aren't doing what you're saying. And it's Daniel's 3 friends. So, and this is Daniel's 3 friends whom he promoted along with Daniel. He knows that they're associated with Daniel and his God. So, verse 12, these people come forward. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. So he knows who these people are after they're revealed. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, these men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods, nor or worship the gold image which you have set up. Verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego. Okay, so he knows they're tied in with the God of gods. No regard. No regard for this God. No regard for these people who confess this God. Rage and fury, he brings them. You see the high mind, especially if the image of gold is himself. You see what kind of personality we're dealing with here. A guy that doesn't learn from what he has experienced. That is the personality of a sociopath, or part of it. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, verse 14, saying to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready at the time, you hear the, all the instruments and that, and you fall down and worship the image I made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning, fiery furnace. No regard for the God who not only revealed the dream to him, but interpreted it, or the ones that worship this God. So you know the story here, right? He orders the furnace. They don't do it. Yeah, you know what they say, obviously. We're not going to worship your God. We're going to bow down to him. And our God is able to deliver us from your hand, And what does he do? I mean, his countenance changes like a lunatic. He has the furnace heated 7 more times in his rage. Do you see what kind of guy we're dealing with here? These 3 are confessing, and they know whose God he is, the God of gods. He still has no regard for this God. This is a type, by the way, of the end-time Antichrist. Nebuchadnezzar is a type, a shadow of the end-time Antichrist. He was a servant of God to execute judgment on all the wicked nations around them, especially Judah. So this Antichrist at the end of the age is going to be the sociopath of sociopaths. So as God dealt with this sociopath, do you think he's also going to deal with the sociopath that's coming in the next few years? I would think so. Like God told Abraham after Sarah laughed. You know, why is Sarah laughing? Is anything too hard for the Lord? After all, he's in the end responsible for this creation. Put us under sin, gave us a nature that's hostile to him, Romans 8:7. And on top of that, he puts an evil angel over the world to deceive the whole world. There's a purpose going on. It goes deeper than what Orthodox Christianity has taught you. So, all right, so they go into the fire. They're not burned, their clothes, their hair's not singed. Verse 24, then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke and saying to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. They said, look, there's 3 in there, and there's another one, like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth. He calls them out. Verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, blessed, okay, here's incident number 2. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies, and that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap. Nice guy, huh? Because there is no other God who can deliver like this. So that's incident number 2. You think the guy would get the message? Then the king, verse 30, promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-Nego in the province of Babylon. Everything's good, right? This guy sees it, right? This time he sees 3 guys thrown into a furnace that kills the people that threw them in. They don't get a hair on their head singed. He brings them out. You know what? That would do something to me. Even my dream being interpreted, that would do something to me. And told, you think he'd change? Nah, he doesn't change. He's a sociopath. He can't change. He has no conscience. He can't learn. Right? You get it? Chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar the king, verse 1. To all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell on the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me. Get it? This last one, numero uno, number 3, which is in biblical numerology, completeness, or what's the other, finality. Well, he finally gets it this time, and you're familiar. If you if you've read Daniel, you're familiar what he had to go through to finally get it. Is the arm of the Lord too short? Who knows what the lake of fire is? That's why I have to go with what Paul says, that in Adam all die, so in Christ all shall be made alive, but each in their own order. God is not the author of confusion. This guy, if there's any guy that deserved to be barbecued, to have his life put out, and I know we can parse scriptures and this and that. So, peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me. How great are his signs and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So what happened to him? Well, you know what happened to him. By the way, my wife came in. I'm like, hey, I'm doing a video. So he has this dream about this tree. So when he needs the dream interpreted, okay, so here, this is, okay, so in chapter 4, he greets everybody first. So he greets them, and he tells them about the signs and the wonders that God has done for him. Then he backs up, and the story backs up. Whoever wrote this, whoever wrote the book of Daniel, and it could have been Daniel himself, I haven't researched it, so I can't with authority say that he wrote it. Sorry, someone can tell me. So it backs up. It says, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts of my bed and visions in my head troubled me. Okay, so who do you think he's going to call in? He's going to call in Daniel, right? Who he set over the magicians and the astrologers and made him ruler over all the province of Babylon, right? Because he told, not only interpreted the dream, but he told the dream to Nebuchadnezzar himself. And he decreed that his God was the God of gods, right? So he's going to call Daniel in, right? He's seeing these miracles with him and his buddies, right? People thrown into fire and not getting burned up. So he's gonna he's gonna call in Daniel, right? Because this guy's the overall, and he can not only interpret dreams, but he can tell you the dream. Nah, he's not gonna do that. You know why? Because he's a sociopath. He don't trust anybody. He can't learn. He goes his own pattern, his old patterns. Therefore I issued a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. So what does he do? He calls all his old buddies in, the magicians, the astrologers, the soothsayers, those, that are attached to demons and this and that, lying spirits. He doesn't go to Daniel. But when they can't tell him the dream, or tell him the interpretation of the dream. But at last Daniel came before me. This one is Belteshazzar. So the last guy called in, Daniel. Did he learn? No, he didn't learn. So let's he sees, he's telling Daniel the dream. The large tree that the branches reached to the ends of the earth, and food was supplied for all, a type of kingdom of God, and a type of the parable of the mustard seed. All the birds, had shade, and the beasts and all of humanity underneath. Of course, it's figurative. His empire did not reach all over the earth, and we know that. So this is actually a prophecy I'm going to look into. So, verse 13, I saw in the visions of my head while on my bed, and there was a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, chop down the tree and cut off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get out from under it, and the birds from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump and its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron, and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let it graze with the beasts. Let his heart be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the heart of a beast. And let 7 times pass over him. So this decision is the decree of the watchers and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, in order that the living may know, now listen, in order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. How's God going to deal with these people, these incorrigible people? We don't know. We don't know what the lake, I don't know specifically what this lake of fire, this pond of fire or flame is going to be. This guy seems to have got it while he was alive the first time on earth. Now, I'm not saying this guy was converted and he died and is going to be raised in the first resurrection. But do you get what God can do? So, let me just go. All right. So, this guy's still arrogant, hasn't learned, didn't call in Daniel when he had a dream, another dream, calls him in last. The one whom confessed was, your God is the God of gods. He calls in all the people that are worshiping false gods, the false gods of Babylon. Verse 28, all this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar at the end of the 12 months. He was walking about the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke, saying, is not this great Babylon that I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for my honor and majesty? High-minded as ever. Hasn't learned a thing, has he? Not humble. While the word was still in the king's mouth, the voice fell upon from heaven, King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you. And they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass. Okay, you know all that. Verse 33, that very hour the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and ate grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. And at the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High. Finally, the guy got it. 7 years had to pass. I'll tell you what. Would that be a lake of fire to you? Would that be a trial of flame to you? Like the rich man and Lazarus. Lazarus, I'm tormented in this flame, this trial. I'm seeing Lazarus, Eleazar, Abraham's servant of Damascus, go into the first resurrection, and I, Judah, the religious leaders, I'm going to be the lowest one in the kingdom, in the second resurrection, the great gulf between them. You talk about a flame here? And I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. No more of this, you know what? I did it all. Because I did it all. That's what the Antichrist, the Assyrian, is going to say. By my hand I've done it. I've removed the boundaries of the people. Where God says, you're just the rod, the club, the hammer of Thor in my hand. You're the rod of my anger. Does the axe boast against the one who wields it? Once again, a tool, a servant to execute his judgment. And I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever and ever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. No one can restrain his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time, my reason returned to me, and my glory and my kingdom, my honor, my splendor returned to me. My counselors, my nobles resorted to me. I was restored. My kingdom and excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. In his ways, justice, and those who walk in pride, he is able to put down. Does it sound like what he's going to do to these people? That have personalities like this: liars, perjurers, whoremongers, sociopaths. Is the arm of the Lord too short? You never hear a peep out of this guy again, don't you? This guy was a murderer. I mean, he had millions killed. You see what God did to him. He was a sociopath. And when he was done with him, does he sound like a pretty humble guy to you? So when Paul said God will have all men to be saved, does he really mean that? That's why I have to side with Paul. Actually, this little ministry of mine, I model after Paul. I don't take money. I don't ask anybody anything. I just don't do that. So, thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.